There's not a lot of detail, at least I could find in this, about actually how this is going to work. I understand that the utilities are not our friends. They don't use our resources, and they don't hook up people, and they only go where they can make money. And so I understand what the process here is as far as trying to do something that actually serves the people. So in my district, 100 megabytes per second download is far more than most people actually have. And in this bill, that's going to be the standard for for served or underserved. 25.3 seems more like an accurate standard for truly underserved. For the last mile, rural funding formula was 100 megabytes per second. The threshold chosen for prioritizing distribution of that 100 billion, and not the 25.3. So I think that it's going to, the truly underserved are going to try to meet a higher standard than what a standard of 25.3 would be. So can you kind of give me some thought process about how you got to that calculation?
Sure, Senator Dahle, I will turn that question over to one of my colleagues who's been working on broadband.
Sure, Mark Window, Department of Finance, and so as I think Ms. Lee has already noted, the majority of the funding for this proposal comes from the ARPA funds. And so to a certain extent, so they have the 100 down certainly is part of the what the feds would like us to pursue. But in general, working with the Public Utilities Commission and other industry experts, 100 down is it's a good future-proof measure. And it's something that's technologically achievable. So when we talk about our proposal, we've got the middle mile, we've got the last mile, and so but the target really is to identify first those who are unserved. And so when we reference the 25.6, I think it is that's a service that's not fast enough to allow for the multiple users the way that I think people have now become used to or have had to get used to during the COVID pandemic. And so the idea for the 25 down is that anything below that is not it's not functional enough. And so as we fund projects, we want to make sure that the projects are able to operate at the 100 level.
Well, I would just share with you that this is an area I've worked a lot in, and 100 megabytes per second versus 25. So that means that anybody that has 25 or is under 100 is considered underserved. So that means that they have something if they're 25 or above. So if you're 25 below, if you have nothing, you would be happy to have 25.3. And that's my point, is that most of this money is going to go to areas that have service, but just not 100. And that's going to carve out a whole bunch of people in areas where they don't have it. So I'm concerned about that policy and how it plays out when we actually spend the money. I understand we got to get this on the ground, we got to get it done because this is federal dollars. So I think that's something we should look at maybe in some follow-up language, because we're going to miss a whole bunch of people that are not served, and we're going to speed up people's services that already are served. I think that's a problem with this with this proposal. The other thing I wanted to ask about is the middle mile. This is going to be a government-ran internet service. This is done by the funds that are coming from the federal government and from the state funds that we're putting in. And all the monopolies that we have, the 5 big monopolies that don't help us out, which is AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, and all the big utilities out there that have all this infrastructure. And we're going to put the middle mile in, but who are we going to hook up to? Are we going to try to hook up to their source and then offer it to their customers? I don't believe they're going to be wanting to participate in letting us get on this backbone. The backbone is not owned by the public. It's owned by private companies, And if we're going to put the middle mile in and try to hook up to that and go out and serve unserved communities, I don't see what the incentive for them to be able to let us hook into the background. So how's that going to work?
Yeah, so part of what the trailer bill does is it provides for a third-party administrator that has broad experience in this industry, and so, but the intent is really to build out or to make sure that we have an open access middle mile that ties into that then last mile communities can tie into. And so in terms of the way that the industry and that currently has infrastructure there, certainly we don't want to build something we don't need to build, right? And so we would work with industry, we would work through our third-party administrator, and try to use what's available if we can get long-term access to it. But to the extent that that we're unable to get that, then we would need to we would need to go ahead and build out the system there, so that in the end we have a middle mile system that reaches all of the communities in the state.
Well, I would say that we are going to put middle mile right alongside a private provider's middle mile. I have it throughout my district, and it's something I've been very frustrated with the utilities is, I've said it 3 times on this floor. We have the I-5 corridor, goes all the way from California to Washington, and there's fiber laid, lots of fiber laid right up through there, and a lot of it along the railroad lines as well. And they don't allow me to tap into it. So they're going to allow you to tap into somewhere to hook up my community because you have middle mile next to theirs. But you got to connect it. There has to be an on-ramp and there has to be an off-ramp. To get the on-ramp, you have to take it from some private company's backbone. That's the concern I asked earlier. But you're basically saying we're going to build our own network right next to theirs, and that somehow is going to serve our communities.